How's it going, team? I said I'd get you a video on running form, so we'll dive straight into it. I'm actually barefoot at the moment. I have got some shoes, but I probably won't put them on just yet. And the ones that I show you will be minimalist, right? So they'll be barefoot style. So you can actually see how barefoot and barefoot shoes translate. Obviously, the barefoot shoes are going to offer protection, whereas running bare feet on concrete, like you'll see, won't. So there's a few things we need to take into consideration on form. I mean, there's a lot of runners here actually running along this beachfront right now, and it's interesting to see the variety of different form that they have. There was a lady who just ran past, and you can see she is probably quite a high level runner just based on her form. And there's three things really you can identify. One's going to be the foot strike, and also like the cadence, so the foot speed and the way the foot lands, either on the heel, so heel striking, not good, midfoot, pretty good, and then toe, good. But it's really going to depend on the speeds that we're running, but clearly we want to avoid hitting on the heel. And then the next one is going to be the arm drive. Okay, so bringing the arm up and back and then actually pushing it back down. And that's where I really like the rope, because you can work on the underhand movement. And also that's getting the spine to move and then the head over the toe at the same time. So that's another really, really important part. And then a slight forward lean. Okay, but I'm exaggerating, but that's going to allow us to controlled falling as we move forward. Okay, so there's a number of parts there. So having a look at this in a little bit more detail, in terms of how the foot will land. The first one's going to be the heel. Obviously we want to avoid that, and that's why I'm saying you want to start warming up without shoes on, because if we think about running on concrete, okay, an immediate way to alleviate people running on their heels is going to be to go barefoot, because that is going to be a lot of bone on concrete impact, which we clearly want to avoid. Second thing on this as well is if we're wearing big comfy cushioned shoes and it's making us or preventing us from running properly and we're heel striking. Another thing, when we heel strike, actually we're putting our brake on, because if we have a look at our position now, the heel's into the ground, but my body's back this way, so we're almost overstepping, which means actually as soon as we hit the ground, we're putting a slight brake on before then going onto the midfoot, then onto the forefoot, and then propelling ourselves forward into that position again. Okay, and then we'll be doing exactly the same. So although it's minor, we're going to be putting on the brakes every single time we take a step, for one, and then secondly, we're going to be creating more impact on the body at the same time. Okay, so when we look at running, I'm going to run really slow. We want to make sure that we're not running here, and immediately a way to alleviate that is just to practice barefoot. So what we're aiming to do then is not land on the heel. We're aiming to land on the midfoot, and when we start to increase the speed, what will actually happen is we'll probably start to land more mid to forefoot on that front. Forefoot's going to be more sprinting. Okay, so just one to consider. You can also get shoes that are exactly like this, so you can see actually the rounded. This one's actually got a carbon plate in it, so you can see actually good amount of cushioning but good propulsion. But then the carbon plate actually inside of it, it's actually hard to bend the shoe because the carbon plate's so tough. I can't actually bend the shoe. But what happens is when we land on that actually helps with propulsion. So these are a great shoe for performance. However, if you're training in these solely, then maybe it can cause a few issues for you. Okay, so that's why it's good to do barefoot training, but clearly we want to keep off the impact as much as possible. So basically what I'm saying here is we want to get the footwear off, okay, and train barefoot as much as possible. And then when we're doing our warm-ups, maybe find something, a hard stand. It can be on grass, but if you really want to make sure that you're not doing that heel striking, then take your shoes off, get on the concrete, and that will allow you to train into your body and think of it like as marginal gains over a long period of time. So for instance, every time you warm up, you're spending a couple of minutes to 5 minutes to potentially 10 minutes doing your warm up, doing your mobility and running drills to warm the body up. And then what happens when you put the other shoes back on, then actually you've already trained it into the body. However, we need to be very conscious and aware of how we work and where we're spending the most amount of time. So potentially for some easy runs, maybe some minimalist footwear could be good, but it needs to be a slow transition, otherwise you can cause a lot of injury. Because if we just go back to wearing these shoes after training it into the body, and then we go back to immediately heel striking, that can be problematic. Ideally, we want to land on the midfoot. However, I mean, you're going to need an assessment specifically to you, someone to have a look at your gait. You can get on a variety of treadmills, machines and stuff like that, but just be very aware, because often these machines can be old. Often the people that are actually using the machines might not actually be that competent, and they may be giving generalist advice, all right? But just like I showed you with the heel strike, if you're heel striking, more impact and also going to be putting the brakes on at the same time.